surviving mindset, thriving mindset, winning mindset. Winners are built. I can look at you. We just met, but I read people fairly well. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Energy matters. I can look at you and tell you had somebody who told you they loved you. I can look at you. I can look at you and tell you have both self-esteem and confidence. Those two things are different.
If you believe we can change the narrative, if you believe we can change our communities, if you believe we can change the outcomes, then we can change the world. I'm Rob Richardson. Welcome to Disruption Now. Welcome to Disruption Now. I'm your host and moderator, Rob Richardson. With me, I'm honored to have John Hope Bryant, entrepreneur, philanthropist, author of many books, Advisors to Many Presidents, and author of his latest book, Financial Literacy for All, which I'm currently reading. I've definitely looked up to him, saw him on Breakfast Club and many others, and many other segments, including CNBC and many others. And he is definitely a disruptor. He's disrupting struggles, particularly for African Americans and having to accept struggle, particularly when it comes to finances, and is working to empower all. John, pleasure to have you on Disruption, brother.
My honor to be on with you, Rob.
I can't hear him. We need to test the mic.
Honor to be with you.
Something. All right. Got a little bit of sound issue here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can't hear him on my end. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. So let's get that. Let's yeah, we got it. We're doing out. Give me a second. Audio. Test. Do the test for test the speaker. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't hit test. I can't hear that. No.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
I can hear it. I can hear him now. John?
Yo, I'm here.
All right, you're here. Sorry about that. So good to have you on. Pleasure to have you on. So yeah, I really want to start with, kind of going into your journey. I kind of see that you started off with that your mother was kind of, from what I could tell, she was kind of your source of inspiration when it came to entrepreneurship, and her and your father started off, very early on in the segregated South, actually becoming entrepreneurs pretty early, and then reverted back through, I guess, divorce and other issues. I wonder, how did that moment really shape your life in terms of what you do now when it comes to financial literacy?
Well, you said a word, as they say in the community. When you talk about my mother, she wasn't the source of my inspiration for entrepreneurship. Actually, she didn't want me to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, really? Okay.
She wanted to go get a job. She wanted me. She was tired of worrying about me, so she really wanted me to go to work. If she had her druthers, she would have had me working at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, where she worked, which became Boeing Aircraft later. But she was a premier saver, a premier investor. She was financially literate. She had a credit score over 800. It was in the mid 850
Wow.
back in the day when they were 850. That score doesn't exist anymore. But there was a time where they went up to 850. She was over 850. When she said she bought a car, she meant cash. That was one. Her name was Juanita Smith. She passed on last September and has been promoted. But most importantly, she told me she loved me every day of my life. And there's nothing more powerful than a child being told that they're loved. I can tell that somebody told you.
Absolutely.
They loved you. I can tell you, I can look in your eyes and see that. You can always tell when somebody was well loved. And if you want to find a good man, it said, find a man who had a great relationship with his mother. You want to find a woman who has a great relationship or had a great relationship with her dad. Now, you can have relationships without that, but it's an easy cheat sheet if you find somebody who had a great relationship with their really the opposite sex, if you will, in the relationship of parents. It gave them something that they didn't have naturally as a male or a female, and it gave them respect and consideration for that opposite sex also. My dad was the businessman. He wasn't an entrepreneur. He ran a traditional business, a cement contracting business, but he was the hustler in the family. And my grandfather, so that's Johnny Smith, my grandfather, R.B. Smith, was a sharecropper. And my second great grandfather, George Young, fought in the Civil War in the black troops. as a result of the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Lincoln, he was assigned as one of 7,000 officers in the U.S. Black troops in Memphis, Tennessee. And so that's where I got my freedom fighter, social justice bones. And then my business bones, again, came through my grandfather and my dad. And I became an entrepreneur almost as a new feature in our family lineage. As you know, to be an entrepreneur is be a little bit crazy. And my dad wanted freedom, but I think he wanted it in a box he could recognize. And there's nothing recognizable about entrepreneurship. But because of the courage that my dad and my mother had, it gave me expanded courage. And really courage is your faith reaching through your fear, displaying itself as action in your life. And I was just standing on tall shoulders, had great reason to be courageous because of the seasons that came before me. So, there's a lot of role modeling that went on before me. That's really what you're talking about.
Yes.
Both in the form of love, my mother gave me. Why did at one point I own 700 homes? I sold the company, Promise Homes Company, 2 years ago. I'm a passive shareholder now, but I sold the company, but I grew it from 0 to 700 homes, about $150 million in asset value. Well, my mother owned 7 homes and my grandmother owned a shotgun shack.
So I'm curious though. So like you said that it wasn't your parents or your background gave you the strength and the courage to go out here and disrupt, to be an entrepreneur, which is a crazy thing to do no matter who you are, where you come from. But what inspired you to seek out this path and to get on this path when you definitely had examples of courage, but not necessarily examples of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I became convinced at 9 years old that freedom had changed in America. It had always been this way, but people of color, in particular, Black people, either didn't recognize it or it wasn't introduced to us or it was snatched from us as a pathway forward. It was denied us, as a pathway forward. So we used the government. We used the thing that was in front of us. We used the thing that had worked as a lever to get freedom through civil rights, which made perfect sense. The 1800s and through the 1900s, Dr. King, the prophet of the 20th century, my mentor, Ambassador Andrew Young, who built the city that I'm sitting in now, Atlanta, the only international city in the traditional South, did that by pulling the levers of government. I understood why my Black brothers and sisters relied so much on it. But at a very early age, I began to understand also that of the hundreds of ethnic groups in America, only Blacks, African Americans, poor whites, who are now rioting at the ballot box, by the way, they riot too, just differently, poor whites and Native American Indians, all three of those groups did not use a free enterprise system. Two of those groups relied exclusively on the government for redress and access. But all three of those groups got left behind. And the number one group dying in America today, high school educated white men. People don't know that. Number one group.
The number one group dying is white men?
Number one group dropping dead today. It has been this way for a decade. Are high school educated white men dropping dead like this because it's opioid addiction and other disease. But really, it's depression. It's lost hope.
Yes.
And this same group are angry and they are rioting at the ballot box. They didn't have a spokesman for, 70 years, 50 years at least since the Industrial Revolution. And then somebody tripped up and tripped up and became their spokesman for their frustration. And now they are on it. They are out here saying, I will not be denied. And you can't be angry at them for being frustrated and angry. Now, anger is not a strategy. Anger is not a business plan. It doesn't work for Black people when we riot in the streets. It's not going to work for my poor whites when they riot in the ballot box. But it feels good in the short term, and there's somebody always willing to stand up and fan the flames of your frustration. But you go far enough to the North Pole, you end up south. It does not last. So I kept looking for something. I like math because it doesn't have an opinion. That's a Melody Hobson quote. And when I looked at the math of the matter, the details, I kept doing the process of elimination. I kept, I would look at I grew up in South Central and Compton.
Right.
And I'd see our folks just dying or getting killed. They're brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, I witnessed 2 murders before I was 9 years old, and the death of our family net worth before I was 9 years old. It was all over money. I was 9 years old. I think this is where you're getting to, I believe. I was 9 years old, and a white banker came into my classroom and taught financial literacy in Compton. And I might as well have met a Martian. I mean, what do you do? By the 4th, he came in once a week for 45 minutes. He wore his normal business suit.
Yes.
His business card said 16th floor. There was no 16th floor in Compton. Rob, the only thing that was above the 6th floor at all was the courthouse. It didn't go to 16 floors, and that was processing folks for supposed criminal acts. This guy worked on the 16th floor in some office building that went beyond the 16th floor. And he was there in the middle of the day. My mother couldn't show up unless I got in trouble. She had 2 breaks and lunch every day. She was an hourly employee. I raised my hand in class. What do you do for a living? And how'd you get rich legally? And he said, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. That was it, man.
That's it.
That was it. That's the demarcation mark. What I said, when this white man came to my classroom and I said, how'd you get rich legally? And he told me this, and I said, wait a minute. And if I get your job is to lend poor people money, that's your job. Yes. And if I don't pay you back, I don't get dead. No, why would I kill you? No, I'm not going to murder you. I'm just going to send you a notice of default. You'll send me a piece of paper if I don't pay you back. Yes. And then I'll give you credit. What's credit? He explained that to me.
Right.
And okay, wait a minute. Are there any other people like you in the country? Oh my God, there's 10,000 banks back then. There's got to be at least 1 million bankers in the country. Whoa, slow down. You mean to tell me there are 1 million people running around this country and your job is to loan poor people money? Well, we're about to be disruptive.
That's so
today, there it is. I'm an entrepreneur, and one of my 5 divisions, which most people know me for, Operation Hope, is disrupting access to capital and access to credit, access to credibility. The word credit comes from the Latin word credito, credibility. The word capital comes from the Latin word capitas, knowledge in the head. And banking is a trust business. You need credibility so you have more capital so that you can access and build a relationship with a bank so they then open up their vaults and lend you money, because there's not a billionaire ever that didn't do it on good debt.
That's right.
There's not a big GDP country with gross domestic product income ever that didn't do it on good debt. All these conversations about how much debt we have, these folks need to knock it off. They know. I mean, people saying you shouldn't buy a home, telling poor people don't buy a home on TV. Those fools own a home, telling you not to own a home is crazy.
They own a home, and they probably own several other homes that they're renting to somebody.
Amen. And I rented again. I owned a company that was it was the biggest owned by a minority. And I would tell people, do not rent from me.
Right.
And if you want to rent from me, do it for a short period of time and get out.
Right.
You shouldn't work at McDonald's your whole life. You shouldn't work at Walmart your whole life. You can if you want to, but if you do, make sure you get promotions. Like my CEO, my friend, the CEO of Walmart, Doug Dillon, who's on his way to India right now. He worked at Walmart, but he's a CEO.
I wonder though, like I want to re-quote your quote earlier, because I think it speaks to what we're talking about here, that this should be something that is the things you're saying is not rocket science. Like you like math, according from your friend Melanie Hobson, because it doesn't have an opinion. I think the issue is that, though, this is not a logical thing. It's deeper than that. Money is, the problems with money are deeper than that. They go psychological, they go emotional. So where can one start? Yeah. Where does one start? What's the root of the issue when it comes to money?
Healing.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, that's
what
a
is
very
healing?
disruptive. Well, there's 3 ways to live. And this is from the book, The Memo, and then my book, Up From Nothing, sort of give you these demarcation marks. And then my last book, Financial Literacy for All, is literally your workbook for your family and yourself, and getting yourself your own balance sheet and income statement, and building wealth and not just making money. Those 2 things are different. But there's 3 mindsets. There's surviving mindset. So I put this in the memo, which is the memo we never got about how the system works. Surviving mindset, thriving mindset, winning mindset. Winners are built. I can look at you. We just met, but I read people fairly well. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Energy matters. I can look at you and tell you had somebody who told you they loved you. I can look at you. Look at you and tell you have both self-esteem and confidence. Those 2 things are different. Somebody poured that into you. You also have good role models. You went and selected them yourself. I can look at you and tell. I can look at you that you wake up in the morning and you're hunting.
Yes.
You're hunting. You're a hunter, and that's a builder. So I can tell you're not a surviving mindset. I can tell you that you've already graduated through a thriving mindset, which is a middle class, which is that's about access to jobs and vacations and building. How
do you move from that survivor? I've never been in it, so I don't really. And I've been to your point. I've been extremely blessed. People have tried to put limiting mindsets into me. The story I tell people often is that I struggled in school early on, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, which is really not a disability; it's a learning difference. But the teachers tried to say that I wasn't going to be a great student. And I decided one day in my life that I said, look, I'm going to achieve in school. And I told this to my 8th grade teacher. And she essentially told me, that's not going to be possible, Robert. Like, you're a horrible student. That's what she told me. Right. And I was close to this teacher. I went home and I talked to my mother. Right. And she gave me the words. I say this to everybody. She said, listen, Rob, you never have to be defined by anyone's low or narrow expectations of you. You define yourself for yourself, by yourself, and let God do the rest. And hence, that's been the story of my life. So, but I was blessed to have that. So, but like for people who don't necessarily have that, where do they start, John?
So Quincy Jones would say, another role model, mentor, friend of mine, not 1 ounce of my self-esteem and self-respect depends on your acceptance of me.
Well, say that again. Say it again. That's a mic drop. Go. Say it one more time.
Not 1 ounce of my self-esteem or self-respect depends on your acceptance of me. I would say, to argue with a fool proves there are 2. That life is 10% what life does to you and 90% how you choose to respond to it. That success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. That if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And the big one is, if I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell. Whatever goes around, comes around. Hurt people. So most of us are in a surviving mindset because we are depressed. And we're depressed because of the way this world has treated us, because we don't have a daddy at home. So if without a daddy at home, a young man has a natural propensity to go cut up. They're going to be over-sexualized and overly violent. That's just natural. That they need discipline. They need to structure, and they need to be told no. Without a daddy at home, they're going to create havoc wherever they go. So a young girl needs a father figure. So if you don't have a daddy at home, if you don't have a nuclear family, if there's one person is working 2 jobs and they're never home just because they have too much a month at the end of their money. If you go outside your street and you're trying not to get shot between your house and the bus stop.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Go on. And if you see the police as somebody who is threatening you, not protecting you, you see white people as somebody trying to put you down versus to lift you up. Then you know, and you go on and on and on. And if you've had 3 generations of that, yet alone 5 generations of that, because there's an old Southern saying, no matter how much I love you, my son or my daughter, if I don't have wisdom, I can only give you my own ignorance.
Yeah.
So out of love, we pass down bad habits from generation to generation. And now you got some people around you who say, no, you can't do that. Why are you going to that school?
Exactly.
People?
Why are you talking white? Go through all that stuff.
So what does that mean? We're talking white. That's crazy. It's English. Like you Japan, you speak Japanese. You're in Mexico, you speak Spanish. You know, you're in Germany, you speak German. If you're in America, you speak English. Which is crazy. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. You got to be bilingual now. You got to go.
Yeah.
You got to talk hood. You got to talk hood. You got to talk streets and sweets. But you got to be bilingual. But if that is your situation, then you're an expert now on what you're against.
Yes.
Not an expert at what you're for.
Yeah.
And so now you've got a surviving mindset and your self-esteem, your assets on your rear end. I can't say what I really want to say. But, and so you all you want to do is live for the moment. I want to get this money, get this paper, get this dollar, get this bag. You hear this in our neighborhood all the time. I want to get this money. Money is extraordinarily overrated. You make money during the day, you build wealth in your sleep. So if you're depressed, what do you do?
You make money during the day, you build wealth in your sleep.
Yes, sir. Hope stocks, bonds, businesses, home ownership, education, things that compound, that build on themselves. And so 96% of our businesses, Black businesses, don't have an employee. An employee is a function of compounding. So you're going to be in your daily hustle. You're basically a self-employment project. If you don't have employees, if you don't have books and records and infrastructure, you wake up every day and you say you run a business, but in reality, you're just earning an income with a self-employment contract. But as soon as that's why they call it making a living versus making a life. As soon as that contract's over, you're out of business, and you built no wealth. You build wealth in your sleep. So the good news about this conversation, Rob, there's not a thing I just said that's complicated. And I'll answer your specific question about how is it that we got depressed and how do we get out of it? Yes. All depression are these INGs. And I said this on the Breakfast Club. Shopping. When you're depressed, you over-index on coping. Shopping, drinking, drugging, sleeping, texting, sexting.
Yep.
What we're not doing is the one ING that matters, which is healing.
Yes.
In order to heal, you got to deal. You got to deal with your mess, which means you have to have self-esteem. In order to deal with your mess, you must esteem yourself. But if you're running from yourself, if you're living your life for your Instagram profile or your Facebook profile, that's who you want the world to know you are. The word personality comes from the Latin root word persona, which means literally to perform. So our personality is a performance we're putting on for the world. Again, that's another ING. That's a coping mechanism.
It is.
So literally, everything you're doing to cope, everything is literally keeping you from surviving to thriving, and to go from thriving to winning. And winners are builders. That's what you are, Rob. You're a builder. You get up every day and you hunt. And when you get up, the devil said, "Oh shit, he's up." So you've got to change your mindset. And that's why when if you look, I have a lot of fun on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just get folks that think they're arguing with me. No, they're hitting their face on my fist. Yeah. I mean, I'm just a radical movement of common sense. I'm sitting here saying what is basic common sense, and they're trying to rationalize their behavior because it's tied to a 40-year life.
Because it's irrational. They're tied. It's not rational.
No, it's worse because the rationalized tell rational lies.
Yeah.
This is somebody, Rob, been doing this for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
These coping mechanisms, and here's this guy, John Bryant, coming and saying, "No, you got to knock all that stuff off." They're like, "No, I don't need to knock that off. I need to knock you off."
I think, well, I want to make sure I get to a couple of things. One, I want to talk about diversity, and you talk about it.
This topic here, you can do this topic. I know we don't have time today, but this topic here, Charlamagne's he and I are both very passionate about mental health. This topic here could be 3 segments, just mental help. We have got to deal with this. It is the key to everything. And there's too many of us who are not acknowledging that we have mental health issues. If you're Black in America and don't think you're crazy, you're a little crazy.
I think everybody's a little crazy in America too, but because we go through a lot. And I think it's, the root of mental health from my definition is avoiding reality and avoiding the pain. And so like we, as you say, Black Americans have been through a lot of pain. So the goal is to, if you're trying to avoid it, you don't deal with it, and then you're dealing in things that aren't reality. And then that is the roots of mental illness from my perspective.
And that's why you got 1.8 trillion of Black consumer spending, and 91% of it is consumption. 91% is consumption. We're not building wealth. 41% of us own a home. No, we want to rent in a place that's uptown versus downtown, a place we can't afford with money we don't have, to impress people we don't know, to talk about stuff that don't matter, people who don't want you. That's low versus taking your area into the hood, DA-HOD, the hood,
right.
Buy the worst house in the best block. Buy it, rehab it, and live in it. Build equity. When you get enough equity, 3 to 5 years, use the equity through line of credit and buy a second home in the hood, near transportation, near jobs. Every inner city is near centrally located real estate. An inner city in France is called Paris. Buy, rehab, and rent. And rehab, be conscious, rehab it with people who actually live in your neighborhood. Plumbers, heaters, landscaping techs, roofing, lighting. Hire people in your hood, not your cousin Pookie and them who don't have a talent. Hire somebody who has a skill, who looks like you, put them to work, give them a contract, and recycle those dollars. And you do that 3 times, and you'll have $1 million net worth in 5 years with a high school education. So there you go right there. Because you have low self-esteem, you're going to the mall when you really need to be going to the real estate listings, right?
Yeah.
Because you got low self-esteem, you're going to the club, you're looking at pay $500 for bottle service for some lady who, you really in the daytime and sober, you wouldn't spend a lot of time with, or guy if it's reversed. And what you really need to be asking that lady is not what's her waist size. You need to be asking her what's her credit score. But because
what's your credit score, and what are your values of the money and finance?
And what's your vision?
Yes.
What's your passion for your life? Because you're potentially picking your life partner at a club at midnight.
Yeah, it's probably not a good strategy.
And you're drunk.
So it's you hit a lot of points here. I think I want to talk since we kind of did this deep dive, and I certainly want to get on diversity at least towards the end of the conversation. But since we're focusing a lot on mental health, we talk about mental clarity essentially, and getting mental clarity and mental health. I think one of the challenges, you and I before the broadcast talked about AI, and not only how it's changing the economy, but AI, I'm sure this is not new. Algorithms are not new. Algorithms are actually being used to really actually further drive people into more of their madness, from the rallying at the ballot box that you talked about to the worst habits you just talked about with the Black community. I mean, I'm just saying, like, how do you start when you have this device that's been in front of us so long that actually is an addictive device? Where does one start to get mental clarity? If you had to say one thing that they can do to make the biggest difference in their life. We can talk about self-esteem, and you and I have been blessed to at least have some examples and models poured into us. For maybe those who don't, where should they start? What's the one place they can start to get the most mental clarity?
In a book.
There you go.
Keep in mind that there was a law, the most important law passed by people who are trying to oppress you for economic purposes, because it was all about money, was thou shalt not educate. It was against the law to educate a Black person, against the law for you to learn. That should tell you everything about the power of education. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk. One of my 5 pillars of success is as much education as you can shove down your throat. Second pillar, understand financial literacy, the math of the matter, how education is applied to aspiration, market economies, financial literacy. My book, Financial Literacy for All, as an example, what Operation Hope does. Number 3, family structure and resiliency. They sold off the children and they abused the wife until you stopped fighting to try to protect her because you couldn't do anything about it. They broke the family up. So there you go, family structure. Self-esteem and confidence. What did this do to your self-esteem? It ruined your self-esteem because you could not protect your family. What are Black men doing now? Not showing up at home because they don't feel they can protect and take care of their family. Self-esteem and confidence. Where does confidence come from? Confidence comes from competence employed in the market economy. So Black people in America have the highest confidence because we're in the biggest economy in the world. Like you, we're killing it, but we have low self-esteem. Africans and African Caribbeans have high self-esteem and low confidence. Because they've got family structure, if you see the doctors, lawyers, robbers, mayors, everybody looks like them, but they have never succeeded in a leading market economy. And then the role models of the environment. You model what you see. Why do kids want to be rap stars and athletes? God forbid, drug dealers. Because when they grew up in their neighborhood, those were the role models they saw. So read a book, start with mine. I've made it very simple. I've taken Wall Street and brought it down to Main Street, unpack it. I want to see the book written, underlined, highlighted, dog-eared, have a conversation once a week. Y'all don't have dinner with each other anymore. Use the book as an excuse to have a family meeting. Buy some dinner, put it on the kitchen table. And by the way, don't eat soul food every dang on day, 3 days a week. That was a slave diet. They threw the money out, but they threw the scraps out the back door as a sign of disrespect. Now, brilliantly, we took it and we said, we'll show you. And we put salt on it so that the meat wouldn't go bad. We put salt on it. And then we made grits, hog maws, pig feet, fried chicken. We did all that whole cake. We did all that stuff. Yeah. But these are the worst parts of the animal. And it wasn't meant, great. We made it a soul food, but it's going to bloat you. It's going to inflame you. You're dying of hypertension and diabetes and low and high blood pressure because we're eating this stuff 3 times a day. Eat some fruits and vegetables and some fish and eat soul food once or twice a month as a treat. Now back to the question. We've got to get your life straight. You got to get you back on the right course. You need a financial literacy course and you need a computer course. Now you really need more than a computer course, but that's where it starts. Because that job that some people are watching this, listening to this, that job that you have or Pookie, your cousin Pookie Jojo's got at the convenience store, it's gone. At the fast food store, it's gone. At the grocery store, it's almost gone. And as you said, it's happening right in front of you. Go to the grocery store. Don't mind me. Don't take what I'm saying. Don't take what I'm saying as gospel. Go to the grocery store. It used to be 10 aisles of people checking folks out. You go there now, and there's 3 aisles of folks checking folks out, and there is 10 to 12 self-checkout counters and 1 employee looking at them. And this has happened right in front of you. That is robotics. That is automation. That is computerization. That is a step towards AI. Yep. It is analytics in motion in your grocery store. You go to a fast food restaurant. It used to be 8 to 10 to 20 people working in one fast food restaurant. Now you go there, it's 5 to 6 people. You go and you hit a screen to put in your order because people are tired of you being rude to the counter clerk, and they're tired of the counter clerk being rude. And so you go to the mall. You go to the mall. Go to the airport. I mean, it's right. It's happening. Yeah, right.
You're right about that. It's not, but this is the first technology. If I can, it's also a general purpose technology in that it's the first technology that I think is actually going to affect people in finance too. It's going to affect actors and other people. You can see you're in Atlanta. I believe Tyler Perry was building an $800 million studio, and he saw AI, said, I got to shut this down until we figure out where we go next, because this makes it so I don't have to do much of this. I don't have to do as much as I had to do even close. So I do think there has to be something. And I was playing your book today. My adopted son, who's my cousin, I took him. I was driving him. We were listening to the book. I made him listen to sit down, and he told me, "Well, I can look stuff up." I said, "Well, you can't look up how to think." All right. So
that's a word.
So you got to know this, because you can do artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. Okay, so it's coming from data.
So to your point, I use AI all the time. I use OpenAI with my friend Sam Altman.
I do too.
Created the company. We're co-chairs of the AI Ethics Council together, as you know. But I know what I'm looking up, and I have a gut of what is right. So I know what to ask AI, and I'm really saying, can you confirm? Do me a favor. I can research this AI. I can research this for a week or a weekend and come to the conclusion that what I'm saying is correct by pulling together 15 pieces of data and then sort of, microtizing it. But AI, do me a favor, reach all over the world to every database accessible. And in 3 seconds, AI, confirm to me what I believe already is correct. So I can then write it in this article and know that I'm factually correct. So education comes from books or from data, as your relative said, but wisdom comes from experience. And I can sit here and tell you, it's like all these brothers walking around saying they're financial influencers and ladies, and I did this. I covered this on Charlemagne's show. These people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, sometimes millions, telling you how to get rich by doing seminars about getting rich. Now, I'm not hating on you, but this is like somebody saying they're going to do surgery on you and do cancer surgery, and they got it certified on YouTube. Like, this is crazy. There are certain careers you have to know what you're doing. And money and making money and building wealth is one of those things you cannot floss and fake. You cannot get it from us. You cannot get it completely from books on tape. You've got to get to deal with somebody who's actually done it. We don't have time for this, but there's so many transactions and so many things I've done, including one last week.
And I want to continue the conversation. We'll talk afterwards because I've definitely got more to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, where I've learned something that I thought I knew, and I didn't know it. But I learned through this transaction, through the grinding of free enterprise and capitalism, because capitalism is a gladiator sport. And until you're in the arena and in the room, you don't know what the heck you're doing. You don't know what's going on. You know what's going on when you get there, and you don't know how people want to behave until you're sitting across that negotiating table. And how you're going to react or respond to that defines everything. And so you want to talk to somebody who's been to that negotiating table. I've signed a $200 million credit facility. Me, I'm one of few African Americans alive today who signed a $200 million credit facility, and it was non-recourse, which, Rob, as you know, means I don't guarantee it. I'm part of a $100 million credit facility just this past January, company that I created. When I first started, if you had a $50,000 loan, it's personally guaranteed, right? But now I'm doing non-recourse debt. Somebody can't give you a book and tape seminar who hasn't built my payroll is $1.5 million every 2 weeks. I have 400 employees. How's somebody going to tell you how to run a balance sheet or an income statement?
And by the way, I applaud that, because there's a lot of people that make a lot of money at that level, but have 10 or 20 people working for them. That's usually what it is, and don't really pass the opportunity. So that's definitely to be applauded.
I have 400 employees. It ain't no joke.
No, it's not. So you definitely be applauded for that. And we're definitely going to have another conversation later. Let me also just say, I want to get to this point before we conclude, and then we'll talk off the air. You talk about diversity and inclusion, and I heard you say this line about diversity and inclusion. You say Black people are too emotional about it, and some white people are too narrow-minded about it. And you talk about it as it is critical in terms of us being competitive as a nation. Tell me what you meant by that statement and how diversity and inclusion is so important for America.
Yeah. On AI, though, let me give you a word on that.
Go ahead.
Sentence. This is a Van Jones quote. I'm giving him quite credit because he's a good friend of mine. We're working on this together. He says that 99% of Black folks don't know a thing about AI. And 99% of white folks don't know a thing about AI.
That's correct.
We all know here. So it's a starting point, the first starting point where we all start basically at the same place. And whether you're in the hood or working at a convenience store or a fast food restaurant, your job's at risk, or whether you're an accountant, as you said earlier, or you're a lawyer, or you're in the creative spaces. Like, again, that Tyler Perry story is real.
It's real.
Your job may go away. And so you may have to reinvent yourself and create a new employment situation for yourself, because we're going to go from the horse and buggy to the automobile. We're going from
for everything,
right?
Not just the horse and buggy. That was transportation. This is everything.
Yeah, but in all fairness, if you had a horse and buggy in 1850, it felt like everything.
Yeah.
But by 1910, the most valuable thing you could use for a horse was to make it into glue. It had gone from everything, purpose, machinery, transportation.
True. Fair enough.
To literally not worth anything. So you're going to have some human beings who the society may say aren't worth anything. I know this is hard for people to hear, but analytics may say you don't have any value, and you're going to have to create some value by being educated, skilled, that you understand how the system works, and you can lean into it in this new world we're living in. Otherwise, it's not going to be love or hate. It's going to be radical indifference. Folks won't hate you, feel enough about you to hate you. They'll just be indifferent towards you.
Which is worse, by the way.
Which is worse.
Indifference is worse.
It's worse. So I went and debated Bill Ackman, who is a billionaire, who is the leader and the poster child for anti-DE&I work. He has built an entire reputation around it. He's going public with his company, in my opinion, because of his profile of it, of him standing in front of it and attracting conservative interest to his platform and possibly his investors in his company. That's just my theory. I don't know that part. What I do know is I debated him about 2 months ago at the Milken Global Conference. It was a private session, so I can't say what was said. I can tell you that after 40 minutes, he really was looking for the exit door.
That's how it usually works with somebody that can debate with some clarity and truth and non-emotion.
He had no receipts. He had no data on his side. I was stunned by this. I came with nothing but data. I was non-emotional. The other side was very emotional. Again, I can't get into details, but let's just say that we had to change the conversation 40 minutes in from the substance to other things around why we believe he's been manipulated or on this topic, and he needs to save himself from, I think, reputation damage because he's on the wrong path. All these folks that are pushing anti-DE&I are on the wrong path. But by the way, Black folks are on the wrong path also. We came at this emotionally. Do the right thing. This is the hand of God. This is, be moral. Okay, that's all cool, but that's not why business is going to, and society is going to change. I mean, we had the chance in Adam and Eve to put our economy inside of our culture. Now, this is God talking. And we decided to put our culture inside of our economy. Back with Adam and Eve, what do you think we're going to do now? And so these folks are leading with their economic interests and their personal interests first. And they're afraid. They're fearful. This goes back to the poor white. This is where poor whites and wealthy whites intersect. They are afraid of the future. There's too many of us in it for their taste, but they've forgotten that God has a sense of humor. There are not enough. This is not a racial comment I'm about to make. It's just math. There are not enough college-educated, successful white men to drive GDP, gross domestic product, for the next 30 years. Our generation will see the first generation of baby boomers over 65 years of age. That's a majority in this country. Those are wealthy, white, and trying to retire. They made their money. They built their wealth. They're exiting the stage. You have those coming on the stage who look like you and me, and we're not financially literate, as we've been saying this entire broadcast. We got hustle down pat, but we got surviving and some thriving down pat, but we don't have building wealth. We don't have that. No one taught us this. So what I say is that when the Blacks succeed in this new world, even the racist wins, because the economy grows, GDP grows, everybody wins. You're going to have a majority of minorities in 10 years. Right now, you have 40% of this country is Black and brown. In 1950, the country was 90% white. 1950, not 1850. And so I can give you more data, but
you can break down very quickly. It's just so people know. I like this one point in data you always bring up. The most diverse cities are the most prosperous too.
Economically prosperous. I'm not talking about something, I don't want people to listen to this and start parsing my words. Economically prosperous, successful, profitable. The most valuable cities in America are the most diverse. Look at Atlanta, where I'm at right now. It's the biggest economy in the traditional South. There's nothing the difference between Atlanta and Memphis and all these other cities other than we made a different business plan, a different bet versus arguing over who's going to go to a water fountain, white and black. We started arguing over who's going to get the contract, the green, right? And so it's the only international in the city. Thank you, in the South. Thank you, Andrew Young. And it is the 10th largest economy in the U.S. And you can put 3 states around Atlanta together inside of Atlanta economically and still have room. The 2 biggest states in America, California and New York, 2 most ethnically diverse, 2 most prosperous financially. And you go on and on and on. The most profitable companies in America by 40% over their peers are the most diverse and inclusive. The data is unimpeachable and undeniable that not only does diversity work as a business plan, but demographics say you have no choice than to promote DEI as R&D. You have no choice than to promote DE&I as GDP for the future. So it's R&D, research and development. This is the farm club and the bench strength for the playoff games of the rest of our lives. This is like Dr. King saying to America, he didn't say, I'm here to save black people. He said, I'm here to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of war, racism, and poverty. I'm not here advocating for black folks and brown folks and giving you some moral statement about DE&I. I'm saying that my rich friends need my poor friends to do better, if only to stay rich. I'm saying you cannot have the largest economy in the world in 20 years as we are right now, and the sole superpower in the world as it is right now, unless you embrace people who are black, brown, and different and teach them how the economy works and give them a ladder into success, whether you like them or not. This is not even debatable. We will be speaking Mandarin in 20 years unless we get this right, because you never had an economic power that wasn't the superpower. Sorry, you never had a superpower that wasn't the economic power at the same time in the history of the entire world. That's
right.
why I say that God has a sense of humor, because with all this crazy politics going on right now, that's basically divide, division, hate this person, hate that. Look, none of that works.
No, it's a way to destroy the nation. And I think that's part of our biggest challenge is an emotional one, is a mental health one. And we have to get that and disrupt that struggle. John, Hope Bryant, it's been a pleasure. I definitely want to have you on again. Definitely want to talk more about particularly AI, because we're doing a lot in that area here in the Midwest and some in the South. So definitely after the stream, let's definitely talk a little bit before you leave. For all those listening to Disruption Now, keep disrupting, and we hope to see you at MidwestCon 2024, September 4th through the 6th. We talk about policy, innovation, and technology for social impact, something I think you would definitely connect with, John. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hold on, right after this, after we end the stream. Thanks so much, everybody. Keep disrupting.